My name is Eric Crump. I'm with the Homewood-Flossmoor Chronicle. Tonight, we're here talking to members of the Greener Homewood Party. It's part of our Meet the Candidates video series. And we'll learn tonight about the reason that these two candidates decided to get involved in village government and try to earn a place on the village board. Some of the issues that are important to them include environmental protection, environmental justice, protecting and supporting small businesses, and also improving the relationship between members of the community and their village representatives. Well, let's start with Liz. You formed the Greener Homewood Party, and we thought it'd be nice to hear from you about why you decided to form the party, why you want to run for office, and try to connect your professional and personal experiences with the job you will have if you're elected.
Great. Yeah. So I'm Liz Varmecky, as you know, but I'm with South Suburbs for Green Space. I founded South Suburbs for Green Space in 2021 to combat the industrialization of the Calumet Country Club, save 126 acres of green space from being paved over and over 2,300 trees. So at the time, everybody had told me that was a done deal. Like, this is a crazy thing to do. And so we're 4 years later, and those trees are still there, and that acreage is still green. And so every season that passes, I consider that a victory. But some of the people who had told me that was a done deal had been people in village government. And I thought, okay, well, let's see what we can do to get the community going. And so we kind of united the community around this cause, and not just the Homewood community, but the Flossmoor community and the Hazelcrest community and the East Hazelcrest community, because we're all really, these spaces are very close together. And during the course of that, I started to notice a lot of issues with the way that the government was run in Homewood. Kind of an isolationist government that didn't want to work with other communities, didn't want to listen to their residents, sort of a paternalism that I started to see problems with. And so for the next few years, I continued to work on the outside of government and continue to do community work. But eventually it became clear to me that for us to actually have real power and to make the government better, to make it more open and inclusive, to make it more green, that would involve actually getting into government, and at least making a competitive fight for our trustee positions. And so that's why I decided to create the Greener Homewood Party. And with some other activists, we started to look for candidates, and we ran into Craig, and Craig is great. And I think that is one of, my community work is a main reason why I'm running. Personally, professionally, I work in IT. I'm a delivery expert and a project manager. So I'm very organized, and I'm very good at understanding complex things and then explaining them to normal people. And so that's, I think, a skill that will be important. My education is in communication and media. So I have a minor in journalism and a major in communication. And so I think that's also really important. I think that being able to bring information to people is half of the battle. And so that is why I think I will be an asset in the Homewood government. And I think that as a community, we can make a lot of change.
Craig, Liz said, join my party. Why did you decide to take her up on that?
There was a vacancy there, and I don't mean that in a glib way. I'm sort of the advocate for small business. My fiance and I own a small business. We have a little bookstore called The Rock Shop in downtown Homewood. I'm a Homewood lifer. I moved away for a little bit during my married life. Wife and kids. That was Northwest Burbs, and after my divorce, my family and my life was back down here, so I find myself back in Homewood. I've been back for about 6 or 7 years now, but graduate of Homewood-Flossmoor High School, firm believer in the community, really like what Homewood has done. I think the town took it on the chin for a little while there, and I think we're in a period of renaissance. I also found myself thinking that we're due for a change in the administration. I think that President Hofeld has done some really good stuff, but he's been there a very long time, and I think it's time for some new ideas and some new perspective. Parking in downtown Homewood. They did some traffic studies, and they decided that to increase business flow in the downtown area, it would be better to increase the density of population. So we have apartment buildings. They want to put more apartment buildings. I can tell you from straw polls, just from people coming through the shop and things that I've experienced, none of the folks that live in those apartment buildings come and shop in those small businesses. But we have lost a significant amount of parking. I'd like to see parking being enforced in the downtown area. I'd like to see the town foster businesses that are already here as opposed to trying to lure people in from other communities. We've got a lot of bright people. We've got a lot of talent in a lot of different areas, and I think that there's a need for a change. And Liz approached me. She was putting this party together, and it was the right time, I guess, to get involved.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned the small business support. I know that's part of your platform. And I wonder if there are specific mechanisms for providing that support that you all favor or want to explore. How can the village do better for its small businesses?
I see the town, and again, I'm not trying to be overly critical, but there is an opportunity to be critical there. I think they do a great job with community events. I think that there's a lot of fun stuff that they have planned for the year. I don't think they're marketing to outside communities, and I think that Homewood and the greater Homewood-Flossmoor area have a significant amount to offer other communities. We're incredibly inclusive, and we're incredibly diverse, and we need to get that message out there. They put a Pride Festival together a couple years ago. I think the Chronicle was part of that. That was amazingly popular and very, very successful. And it did bring people from other parts of the area. And I find a lot of folks, interracial couples, queer couples, the LGBTQ plus community, finding their way here. And I think that's outstanding. And I think we need more of that.
You mentioned parking as a downtown problem and small business support. Another issue that you've talked about in our other conversations is development. That is something that Homewood has prided itself on, is economic development in the past couple decades. Liz mentioned one time when I was talking to her that we need responsible development, and I was wondering if you could elaborate on what that means to you.
Yeah, I will elaborate a little bit on that. So I think that when we're talking about building new buildings, we need to make sure that those buildings are environmentally friendly, that they're doing things that are going to be helpful to the environment as opposed to destructive to the environment. And like 175th Street is a big example where we know along that corridor on the way to the casino that there are plans, especially with the TIF expansion, to develop more of that area, to give more money to those failing office buildings, which is understandable. But we need to make sure that the development that happens there keeps in mind that their neighbor is our treasured nature preserve. I mean, that they are directly south of Isaac Walton. And so whatever development that they do there, it needs to be responsible in a way that's friendly to wildlife and the community. And so we can't have toxic groundwater being pumped in there. That needs to be tested ahead of time. We need to make sure that these are like LEED buildings that are certified. And whenever possible, we need to make sure that they're looking at alternative power sources. So I think that's sort of one of the focuses that I want to bring to Village Hall. One of the things that I would really love to see there and that is on our platform is having an environmental justice commission. I would love to see all policies and ordinances passed by the village reviewed by an environmental justice commission. Is this as green as it can be? Is this as just as it can be? What can we do here to make this a better policy or stronger policy? And not just review policies, but this commission would also be proactive. What can we add to our ordinances? And so I think that's one of the things that is really important, especially as we talk about new construction, is that we need to make sure that that construction is actually like at the cutting edge of environmental responsibility.
So yeah, that a new commission or committee that was devoted to that subject would help the government manage those issues. Also give the community another avenue for learning about and sharing ideas about environmental justice. And that's another thing that you've mentioned in the past and in your platform is about community and village government interaction, engagement, participation. I know, and Craig mentioned too, that the community is already diverse and inclusive. And the next question is, how does the government interact with that community? And so you guys have some ideas about that, I think, right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean,
we had talked in the past about the talent in the area, and I'm not just talking musical talent. I'm not talking about business talent. I'm talking as an umbrella of talent in this area. One of the ideas that I had was showcasing that, putting on some sort of town festival, advertising it in the region, but local beer, local music, local talent, right? Showing off what we have. Flossmoor did a great job with the Gem Half Marathon. They killed it, and people are coming from all over the country to run in that. We need something along those lines, whether it's beer and music fest or we have lots of local breweries, lots of local musicians, all kinds of fun stuff. We can bring people in. So I think we need to do a better job of letting not just the Southland, but beyond who we are and what we do. I think we're an exceptional community.
I think in addition to that, all of that I agree with, but also we need to have town halls. I think that this is, we can't have a 3-minute comment section at a board meeting with there's no interaction unless they feel like it. That's TBD every time you comment. And so I think that we need to have an actual back and forth. And one of my fictional political heroes is Leslie Knope, and I know that those town halls can be a little bit tedious and time consuming, but also that is where you interact with the community. That is where you get to hear from the community. And so what we want to do is at least monthly, but ideally semi-monthly town halls where we're hearing from the community. The community has ideas and the community cares. And to have a venue for them to express that, to galvanize other community members. Obviously, my key focus is environmental issues. There are other people in the community that have other issues, and I think that's one of the things that we really want to run on. That's one of the things that I saw as a big problem, is that we're just not listening to the community effectively. And I think that is just a really important step that we can take. And another thing that is important to all of us in the Greener Homewood Party is term limits. And we think that is what opens up the community to feel like we're going to have more people participate in our government. And I think that having a 3-term limit is not an undue burden. I think 12 years is a sufficient amount of time to get in and get some good work done. But I think that will allow people to feel like they're part of government. A lot of younger people that I've spoken with, they're like, oh, people can run for government? Because, the fact of the matter is all of our current trustees have been appointed. They've run for re-elections, but they've all been appointed. And I think that doesn't make it feel like anybody can join government. One of the questions that you asked earlier was, what are our qualifications to run for government? Our qualifications are we care about the community and we live in the community. And I think that's one of the things that we need to tell people and open up to people is just, this is for you. This is for everyone. And that's one of the things we hope that our candidacy and our, election is going to show people, like, this is for everyone.
Can we revisit just a minute your reference to Leslie Knope, just in case there's anybody who doesn't get the reference? Can you tell us about her and how she inspires you?
Leslie Knope. So I always say that like Bernie Sanders and Leslie Knope are my political heroes. And I think that obviously everybody knows who Bernie Sanders is, but Leslie Knope's from Parks and Rec, and she just has a tenacity that she just keeps trying, and she has this hope that like everything is going to be okay and better. And it's kind of what you have to do when you enter into community work. It can be very discouraging. And I learned that through my work with South Suburbs for Green Space. That was really hard work where everybody said, no, it's not going to work. And I was like, you know what Leslie would say? She would say, yes, I'm going to keep going. And so I think that's, been a really positive fictional character in my life.
Okay, well, that's a great example to use, yeah. The one thing I'm wondering about is you've been observing government from it's the outside, but you're saying it shouldn't actually be the outside. We should all be part of this, right? And so from watching a little bit about how things actually work, the mechanisms and the issues, the constraints and limitations that government officials have on them. I was wondering if what you recommend for people to learn about government so that they understand. You've had some experience with that process as a non-elected official. How did you get to learn about government's operations?
Well, I do a lot of FOIAs. I do a lot of Freedom of Information Act requests. And so I read a lot of the inner workings of how the government works. And so I think that there's two pieces to this. There's how the government works, and then there's the tacit decorum that people think is how the government works. Like, this is what we have to say. We have to be hands off. We're not allowed to comment on this. And I think a lot of that is just, I don't know if it's self-imposed or if it's imposed by another party, but isn't actually the case. I think the idea that we can't talk to the community, that trustees aren't allowed to interact with the community freely, that's not actually true, not legally, not in any kind of written way. But there does seem to be a way that the politics of that work. But the way that Homewood works, village trustees are the voters. They vote on ordinances. They vote to pay the bills. But the village is run by the village manager, who at this time is Napoleon Haney. And so he has the stated power. And that is, the village manager is who should be running the village government in a village like ours. I don't know that that is 100% the case, but the way our village is set up on paper, that is who should be running the village. And so I think that one of the things that I think is to provide the village manager with the kind of direction and the spirit of the government that you want to run from, the top down, from the trustees, is kind of the goal. But in the end, it is the village manager who's empowered to do almost everything on the village's behalf.
One other issue I wanted to bring up, actually you brought it up at the last village board meeting that I never thought I would have been asking, but we now have a federal administration that's taking some pretty radical actions that could impact our community. The recent freeze on federal aid programs, which was quickly walked back, had generated a lot of confusion and concern.
Fully walked back.
I don't know either.
That's very confusing, but I don't. Yeah.
But it got people thinking in a new way. Like, oh, this could change what kind of help we get from our governments above us. And I'm wondering if you've given thought. You asked the question of our village manager, what are we going to do? Have you given any thought to what you as a trustee would do, either of you, to help protect our community from the effects of new policies coming down from Washington?
Here's how I feel about the policies coming down from Washington. I think it's by design. The confusion is by design. The only certainty is uncertainty right now. And the only way that we can get involved and make a difference is at a grassroots level. This is where we get in. Local government. This is our town. I think these are scare tactics. And the only way to combat a scare tactic is to stand right up to it, go right at it. Sometimes the shortest distance between 2 points is right through the middle. So Yeah, you do have to prepare for certain. They backed off on tariffs today, so backed off on Mexico tariffs. Canada's probably going to drop tomorrow. China's still in place. We don't know where it's going to go. Waking up this morning, I was expecting the stock market to be circling the drain, and it did for a little bit, and then it rallied back. We still lost a little bit, but things of that nature. We're not beholden. This is local government. There is federal aid in place, and should it dry up, we're going to find another way. That's all I can say. We'll persevere and plow right through.
I think if we're talking about funding, Homewood was well off. I mean, we compared to other suburbs, we do have good funding sources. We have the new casino. We know that's very lucrative. They haven't added into those funds into the municipal budget yet, so that's sort of just money that's sitting around, which is great. We're doing that big water line replacement. I mean, it's going to be expensive. I think though, if we're talking about other policies, I like to look, honestly, it's shocking to say, but to Governor Pritzker, who has done a great job of codifying things to protect us from bigoted practices and hateful practices that would come from the federal government. And one of those, it has to do with the protections that school districts have against immigration officials and ICE. So I think that we can look at what we can do in a community to make sure that any kind of ridiculous policies coming from Washington wouldn't affect our community. And one of the main ways we would do that would be through working with other taxing bodies like the school district, like the libraries. Like we need, and I think that's part of one of the things when I talk about open inclusive government is that we need to be working with other bodies to ensure that our community is represented and protected. And so I think that working with the school districts is really important and having that kind of open relationship.
Well, thanks. We've covered a lot of ground tonight. Do either of you have any final words that you would like the voters to hear from the Greener Homewood Party?
I think Liz touched on it earlier. The qualification to run for this position is that we are of voting age, registered voters, and we live in the town. More importantly is that we're passionate and we care about this community. I think that everybody on our slate not only has a vested interest in the town, in the Southland, in the state, in the country. I think we're all committed individuals, and it's an uphill battle. I think I said in my survey, we're going up against the heavyweight champs. They've been the incumbents for a long time. That's a tough fight, but I'm not afraid of tough fights. We're going to have lots of them. So we'll dig in our heels and get it done.
Yeah, I think you don't take on battles because they're hard to win. You take on battles because you feel like there's a necessity to do it. And if you don't do it, you won't be able to sleep at night. And so that's one of the, the reasons that I've gotten involved in almost anything politically I've gotten involved in. And so I think this is just another instance where this is something that we need to do. We need to show the community that there's other options. And I don't want the community to feel like criticism of policies is criticism of the community. And I don't want them to feel like that. I want our government to have a place where people can disagree. We don't see that a lot on the board, but that is healthy. Having conflict, having differing opinions, that is healthy. That's what democracy looks like. And that's what we want to have. We want to have a place where neighbors can come, they can bring their concerns about the community, and they may not, their policies might not end up being something that we push forward. But we want to make sure that their ideas are heard and that, legitimately considered. And I think that that is what's not happening now. And that is what we want to see. We want to see a government where people feel like they can speak up, try to make the community better in their view, and then see what happens. But I think that that's what's not happening now, is we just don't have that kind of give and take. And I want this to be a community that represents everyone and all the amazing diversity that we've brought here. And so that's my hope for Homewood.
Yeah, it's been said But we're hoping for a government that is of the people, by the people, for the people. It works.
There's
It
a
just
reason
works.
that saying's been around for
Yeah.
a while. Thank you both very much for joining us
Thank you.
tonight, and good luck in April 1.
Thank you.
Thank you, Eric.